Hey guys, this is Mike with Maverick Expeditions. Today we're going to work on our 2016 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro. We're going to be installing a 2-inch Toytec lift. Here we have the front spacers and the bottom spacers that go on the front coilovers, and we have the rear lift springs. First, I want to talk about a little bit of safety. Always when you're working on your vehicle with heavy duty air tools, you want to use your safety glasses, your safety gloves, and it's always nice to have a little bit of padding or something clean to lay on. Now we have our air impact ratchet. You never know when you're going to need a sand wheel or any kind of backup tools. Here we have a hydraulic air jack, which will really come in handy. It's probably overkill, but you never know. And also another note on safety, I have a rubber wheel chock for whenever we're lifting up one side. We got our impact sockets, ratchet sockets. Here we have a coil spring compressor with a safety ring. And then we have our 2-ton jack stands. And we have our air compressor there in the back.
Let's begin at the front end. Don't forget to place the block behind the rear tire. Find the lowest point on the frame to place the jack for optimal lifting. I chose a spot next to the cross member. Next, position your jack stands and lower your jack. It's important to make sure your jack stands are firm and stable before you continue any further to prevent personal injuries or damage to your vehicle. Using your impact and a 21mm socket, remove the tire and wheel assembly. Use your impact and a 19mm socket to remove the sway bar end link from the spindle. Continue using the same 19mm socket and impact to remove the strut bolt nut from the lower control arm. To remove the bolt, use a hammer and a punch until the strut breaks free. Continue with the 19mm and impact to remove the 2 bolts from the lower ball joint knuckle. Use a 14mm ratcheting wrench to remove the 3 nuts on the top of the strut tower. Remove the sway bar mounting brackets from the frame using a ratchet and a 14mm socket. You will need to remove the front skid plate to reach both bolts. To do this, simply remove the 4 bolts underneath using the same 14mm. When you have the last bolt out, use caution as the aluminum skid plate is heavier than it may seem. Use a bungee cord to secure the sway bar to the upper control arm to get it out of your way. Have a buddy push down on the lower control arm and pull up on the brake assembly while you pull out the strut assembly. We quickly discovered our spring compressor was just too large and heavy duty to fit in the coils. So we made an emergency run to the local shop to add the spacers. Now, just reverse the same process for the installation. Due to the added length of the strut assembly, some force may be required to get the lower mount lined up. Use a drop of thread lock on the tip of these bolts. It's very important to tighten these bolts evenly, a little bit at a time. Then hammer them down. When installing the tire, make sure to ease the lug nuts on, then hammer down. Also, Use a star pattern to ensure even amounts of torque. After everything is tight, spin the tire to make sure it is centered and that it moves freely. Always use a calibrated torque wrench. 85 pounds is recommended. Again, use a star pattern followed by a circle pattern. We already know how to jack up the vehicle and remove a tire, so I will skip all that. Also, we already removed the lower shock bolts and coil springs, and the new ones are ready to go in. Push down on the axle while placing the spring on the perch and spin clockwise to seat it properly. This shock bolt requires a 17mm socket. And the sway bar nut uses a 12mm ratchet wrench. Don't forget to torque. You may notice your steering wheel is not centered. Always have your alignment checked after making any kind of suspension or steering modifications. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Please leave any comments or questions.